The Karath training grounds floated above the fourth moon of Viron 6 like a fortress temple, its domes glowing with shielded heat beneath the searing light of twin suns. Inside its reinforced arenas, the apex of the galaxy's war-blooded species honed their young, training them not merely to fight but to dominate. Here warriors were not measured in years, but in broken bones given and survived. The newest cohort, handpicked across 6 star systems, had gathered at Arena Sector 7. Each youngling was considered elite back on their homeworld. Except one. She stood silently by the wall, expression unreadable, hands clasped behind her back. Human. Female. Maybe 16 standard cycles, with pale skin kissed by no sun, and cold dark eyes that tracked every movement. Her hair was pulled back with military precision. She hadn't spoken once since landing. No one knew her name. The instructors called her Earth Specimen, 771H. The rest just called her Mute. To most of the other trainees, fanged, clawed, plated, or scaled, she was a curiosity. An heir. Her body lacked the bioaugmentations visible in the others. No venom sacs. No power-sheathed forearms. No dermal armor or ocular lasers. Just soft flesh. She wasn't even issued a combat exosuit. "She's decorative," grunted Borkar, a towering Varrock with triple-jointed arms and a reputation for ripping opponents apart with a single strike. A pet project. Maybe she dances instead of fights. The others laughed. But the instructors didn't laugh. Commander Yarek, a veteran of 7 wars and a disciple of pure violence, stood watching the human girl longer than anyone else that morning. Her posture. Her breath. She didn't look around nervously. She didn't twitch. She didn't engage. She absorbed. And in that silence, Yarek recognized something familiar. Something dangerous. He tapped his assistant. "Put her in the sim today. Tier 3. No restriction. I want to see what that thing actually does." The assistant blinked. "Tier 3? That's a death zone. Her vitals aren't reinforced." "Exactly. Let the others watch." The rest of the morning was routine. Kragari children shattered dummies with spin strikes. The insectoid Trzeth larvae performed their synchronized swarm maneuvers. The twin-headed Rolkans practiced blade discipline in hypnotic unison. The human girl remained still. No one saw her flinch when her name blinked across the hollow wall. 771H, Arena 3C. Combat Evaluation. Tier 3. Borkar hissed and muttered, "That's the Apex Sim setting. They'll gut her." She walked calmly across the training dome, down the ramp into the mouth of the arena. The glass walls shimmered with kinetic shield fields. Her bare feet made no sound. Yarek watched her descend, his expression unreadable. The moment she vanished from view, he tapped the control glyphs and spoke aloud. "Sim. Load Apex Predator variant. Aggression 95%. Species, Rorgulan. Set auto difficulty to adaptive escalation." The assistant stared at him like he was insane. "Sir, that thing is." "Begin." Inside Arena 3C the world changed instantly. Simulated jungle surrounded her. A thick mist obscured the high canopy. The air shimmered with encoded warmth and humidity, the ground soft with artificial decay. The sim was a perfect replica of the Rorgulan hunting grounds, a nightmare jungle evolved to teach killers how to move silently, and how to murder efficiently. The girl stood on a moss-covered rock. Her expression didn't change. Not when the branches shivered. Not when a low, guttural growl echoed from behind a tree. The Rorgulan appeared like smoke from shadows, 8 feet tall, quadruple-shouldered, skin patterned to blend with the jungle. It had 6 limbs, each ending in a different evolutionary weapon: a crushing claw, a slicing talon, a neurotoxin stinger, and a coiled prehensile blade. It didn't attack right away. It circled, tested, sniffed the air. The girl didn't move. Not a twitch. Her eyes followed its approach. She blinked once. That was all. When it finally lunged, faster than any standard recording device could capture, she didn't dodge. She stepped in. 1 step. Toes turning with perfect friction against moss. Left hand rising not to block but to redirect. She caught the stinger just behind its jointed segment and pulled, twisting with biomechanics so precise it looked like choreography. The beast's limbs snapped sideways as she pivoted under its momentum, and then her heel came up, straight into its neck. There was a crack like split stone. Then silence. The Rorgulan hit the ground twitching, unable to rise. The girl didn't look at it again. She stood over its fallen body, breathing slow and even. The simulation paused. Yarek hadn't touched a control. The sim itself had stopped. It had interpreted the battle as complete. The human had passed Tier 3. In 15 seconds. Borkar was speechless. One of the Rulkan twins muttered, "What is she?" Another answered, "She's a predator. A pure one." Yarek leaned forward and said nothing. Inside Arena 3C, the human girl looked up toward the viewing platform. Not smiling. Not proud. Just watching. That night, the instructors debated what they had seen. "It was muscle memory," said one. "No," said another. "It was instinct. Trained into reflex." She felt the beast. Not just watched it. She calculated the kill zone in advance. Yarek spoke only once. She wasn't fighting the predator. She was teaching it. Later, when the dorms were dark and the moons rose above the horizon, Borkar couldn't sleep. He kept replaying what he'd seen in his mind. The precision. The calm. The impossibility of it all. So he challenged her. Found her sitting alone in the training hall, drinking recycled water, staring out at nothing. "I want to spar," he growled. "Fair. No sim. Just you and me. One round." She turned to him slowly. "Why?" she asked, her voice soft. "Because I need to know what you are." She stood. "No exorcists," she said. He nodded. "No claws," she added. Another nod. "No mercy." The last nod came slower. He attacked. She stepped. He screamed. By morning, Borkar sat in the med bay, 3 ribs broken, 1 arm dislocated. But he refused sedation. His eyes were wide open. Not from pain. From awe. "I never saw her move," he whispered to the medic. "She was just gone. And I was on the floor." The medic checked his pulse. "You fought the quiet one, huh?" he said, shaking his head. "They say humans don't roar. They whisper. And if you're lucky, you'll hear it before it ends." The instructors updated her file. Name, 771H. Designation, Human Combat Specimen. Threat Rating, Redacted. Recommendation, Isolate for observation. Avoid provocation. Note, may represent previously undocumented class of cognitive kinetic warform. She returned to silence. But the entire training ground whispered her name now. And in the darkness of a forgotten surveillance bay, a high-ranking figure from the Galactic War Council watched the footage on loop. He smiled. "So, the rumors are true. Earth breeds them quiet." When Section 1 closed, 771H had just dismantled Borkar in a silent match, walked away without expression, and left a room of apex predators wondering if their entire understanding of danger had been upside down. But Section 2 doesn't begin with the girl. It begins with a problem. A problem named SCI-FI, and he was watching. Deep beneath the surface levels of the Korath training grounds, in the observation chambers designed for classified behavioral analysis, High Operative SCI-FI stood unmoving, staring at the footage of the human girl's encounter. The Rogulan simulation. The Borkar match. The unbroken calm in her gaze. Scarix's slit-pupilled eyes flicked between playback frames, enhancing at microsecond intervals. She never flinched. Never blinked late. Her muscles activated before threat stimuli presented. Not reactive, predictive. The apex warrior species were bred for strength. But this was something else. Cognitive warfare reflexes. Preconscious movement anticipation, he murmured. A voice behind him said, "Sir, do you require another analysis?" "No. I require her origin file. Everything from Earth's educational logs to atmospheric neurotraces. I want to know who trained her. And why we weren't warned. But Earth is a minor protectorate. Their warriors are considered." Scarix turned. "Considered? Yes. Based on outdated council threat indexing. But if that girl is representative of a trend." He trailed off. The assistant swallowed hard. Scarix spoke again. "Schedule a test. A real one. Not a simulation. No coded limits. I want to see what she does, under stress she doesn't expect." Back in the trainee barracks, whispers had grown into full-blown legend. Some were absurd, that she was a lab-grown ghost, a sentient war AI in flesh, a cloned remnant of Earth's ancient martial monks. Others said she didn't sleep, that they'd seen her just sit and wait, eyes closed, heart slow like a reptile. The only one not speculating was 771H herself. She sat in the corner of the mess hall, alone as usual, eating nutrient paste with a plastic spoon. She wasn't shunned. She simply wasn't approached. Not anymore. The bravest of them, a scaled Xyloth hybrid named Vree, tried once. Sat across from her. Asked her what Earth was like. She answered only, "Home." Nothing else. Even her voice was unnerving, Not flat, not emotionless. Just measured. Like every word was a sharpened weapon, sheathed in velvet. 3 days later, Commander Yarek summoned the entire cohort to the arena apex. The main dome. Reserved for graduation trials or tribunal executions. Every cadet assembled, confusion thick in the air. Then the doors opened and 6 Drachna warhounds entered, bioengineered for zero-empathy combat, bred to hunt prisoners who escaped detention moons. One was enough to kill a squad. 6 meant someone expected a slaughter. The trainees panicked. Yarek's voice rang out. You are not here to fight them. The cadets froze. They are here, to be fought. Pause. By one. The name blinked across the arena wall. 771H. The murmur turned to a gasp. The girl stepped forward. No armor. No weapons. Just that same black undersuit, hair tied back, face unreadable. She didn't ask questions. She walked into the circle. SCI-FI sat above, behind polarized glass, his claws tapping in a rhythm as he watched. Begin, he said. The warhounds did not wait. They lunged, 3 from the front, 2 circling, 1 leaping high from the rear. A perfect pincer from 6 apex combat organisms. Synchronized. Lethal. The girl crouched low. Time bent. She spun under the high leaper midair and pushed it into the left side attacker, sending both off trajectory into the arena wall. Her hands moved too fast for visual lock. 1, 2, 3 strikes, low high kneecap, throat, ear canal. One hound convulsed and dropped. Another tripped on a companion's falling corpse. She had calculated not just their movements but how their bodies would collapse. The crowd was silent. Even the instructors. A warhound snapped at her arm. She pivoted her shoulder in, letting its jaw connect while her opposite elbow crushed its eye socket in a clean arc, bones shattered. Another hound charged and she dropped flat beneath it, slicing its ankle tendon with the edge of her boot. It howled. She moved like flowing iron. No wasted motion. No cruelty. Pure, clinical, perfected efficiency. 2 minutes. 6 hounds. All down. Alive barely. She stood. 1 drop of blood on her cheek. Not hers. She didn't speak. Just looked up, through the reinforced glass, straight at SCI-FI's hidden chamber. She couldn't see him. But he felt it anyway. That look said, I know this was your test. And worse, you failed. She was escorted out without a word. But the council watchers had begun murmuring in shadows. She's not a warrior, one whispered. She's a systemic failure waiting to happen. We built the war protocols assuming no one could move like that. They said Earth was calm now, another said. They lied. Later that night, Commander Yarek approached her personally. I've fought Karkan berserkers. Gutted with my own hands. I've watched Velothian assassins erase generals mid-meal. But you. He shook his head. What are you, girl? Her eyes met his. Finally, a small smile. You already know, she said. She walked past him. Silent again. But in that moment Yarek did know. And for the first time in his decorated life, the veteran of 7 planetary wars felt fear. Somewhere far above, in the orbiting dreadnought of the Galactic War Council, a new file was opened under Earth's planetary designation. Subject, Human Cadet 771H. Classification change, from low threat to preemptive surveillance. Status, potential species anomaly. Directive, observe, record, and avoid direct contact without cause. But it was already too late for that. Because Earth had stopped being the species that needed protection. And had quietly, in the silence of one girl's perfectly controlled breath, become something else entirely. Something older than apex status. Something with teeth behind its smile. The council didn't sleep that night. When Section 2 ended, Cadet 771H had stood triumphant, staring up through reinforced glass at SCI-FI, 6 Drachna warhounds unconscious at her feet, not a scratch on her. The message was clear. But Section 3 begins not with her, but with fear. And not the wild kind, the institutional kind. The kind that changes doctrines. Galactic Council Emergency Session. Location, Secure Orbit, Station Prime, Deep Sector 4. The room was cold, circular, fortified beyond sane measure. Walls lined with threat matrices, predictive algorithms blinking in synchronized warning pulses. They weren't used to discussing a single cadet. That wasn't how threat models worked. And yet here they were. The speaker, a Pletharian with 6 vocal cords and titanium synth bones, stood first. A minor Earthling, one of their young, defeated 6 council-bred apex predators without lethality, without equipment, without emotion. and did so while staring our senior operative down as if she were not surprised at all. This is not a skirmish. This is a declaration we didn't see. The murmurs swelled. We train killers, growled a dreadhelm from the Cravarii cluster. Not philosophers. If this child is typical. She isn't, said SCI-FI. He stepped forward slowly, datapad glowing in his claw. She isn't typical. But she might be predictive. That's what terrifies me. Meanwhile, 771H stood inside a containment cell on observation deck 13. It wasn't meant for punishment. It was meant for containment, until they figured out what she was. She sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed. No chains. No restraints. Just a room too strong for artillery. A room that whispered fear in every pulse. Watching her from behind glass, young linguist Kurova felt it too. But hers was a different kind of awe. She's meditating, Kurova whispered. No, replied a Karkin instructor beside her. She's mapping. That's not calm. That's calculation. 2 hours later, a door hissed open. SCI-FI walked in alone. She opened her eyes slowly. You changed the airflow in the duct above the west corner, she said. Is that because you thought I might escape through phase-space compression? He paused. Said nothing. She stood up. I wouldn't have used the duct. The alloy changes frequency under pressure. Easier to trace. SCI stared, and for the first time in his life felt his heart rate rise. Tell me, he said eventually, voice low. Who taught you to move like that? She tilted her head slightly. No one. Impossible. Your neural timing is decades ahead of any Apex soldier we've profiled. Earth does not possess. Earth teaches us to survive, she interrupted. Everything else comes from not dying when things stronger than you try to hunt you down. There was no anger in her voice. Just reality. SCI-F's claws flexed. Why didn't you kill them? The Drachna? He nodded. Because they didn't force me to. Force you? She stepped closer. Violence is a choice. So is mercy. But mercy is not weakness. He turned to go. Her voice stopped him. There's something worse than killing, you know? He turned slowly. She looked at him. It's letting someone live long enough to warn everyone else. He froze. And that's when he knew, she was doing exactly that. Right now. Not attacking. Just being seen. Just letting them realize. Elsewhere in the academy, word of her battle spread. Cadets didn't see her as a peer anymore. They saw her as a line crossed. Some feared her. Others worshipped her. Quietly. A gesture here, a nod there. When she entered the mess hall, voices stopped. Not out of respect. Out of instinct. She didn't flinch when the Xyloth tried to challenge her again. She simply ignored them. But one alien did approach. A Metsari scholar trainee named Rake, known for pacifist ideals. He sat across from her and said, I read your battle logs. What I don't understand is why you held back. Her eyes didn't lift from her tray. Because there's a difference between defeating something and destroying it. But why does that matter? She finally looked at him. Because one keeps peace. The other starts a war. Back on Station Prime, the Council made a decision. Earth would be classified as a Tier 0 risk species. Not because of nuclear arms. Not because of their technology. But because one child, without effort, had reminded the galaxy of something they forgot. The most dangerous weapon isn't power. It's restraint. And in a quiet council room, under restricted classification, a new clause was added to the Galactic War Doctrine. Do not provoke Earth. Do not engage their young. Do not train their children. But again, too late. Because even now, another Earth cadet was being selected. Another silent girl. Another polite boy. Another polite apex predator hidden in plain sight. And 771H? She was just the first wave. The Council had written the clause. Do not provoke Earth. Do not engage their young. Do not train their children. But paper rules don't stop fear from bleeding through the edges of a doctrine. And fear was exactly what spread next. Section 4 begins not with fire, but with a whisper that turns into a storm. Galactic Training Station. Level Etherian Red. SCI-FI stood beside the holographic representation of Earth. It glowed on the display like a soft star, but everyone in the room now knew better. They had brought in the best linguists, biologists, predictive analysts, and battlefield veterans. All to answer a single question. How did we miss this? The screen flashed through footage again. 771H dropping the Drachna like shadows falling under floodlight. Frame by frame. Not for celebration. For autopsy. For preparation. One analyst finally said what they were all thinking. She was never trying to win. She was showing us what we should fear losing. But Earth didn't issue warnings. Not aloud. Not in treaties. Not in press releases. Earth let its silence speak. And in the days following the incident, dozens of galactic academies received quiet but urgent orders. Isolate Earth cadets. Reduce cross-species joint training. Reevaluate long-term diplomatic structures. None of them could admit it. But the subtext was clear. They were preparing for a war they prayed would never come. Back on the training station, Cadet 771H, now designated Spectre Class 1 in the Internal Council hierarchy, was released from containment. Not because she was no longer a threat, but because they had no cell strong enough to contain the idea of her. When the door opened, she walked out wordlessly. No smile. No anger. Just that same calm precision. The halls parted. She didn't look at anyone. And that was the most chilling part. Because you don't stare down a knife when it's not pointed at you. But you never forget it's in the room. Later that cycle, a ship docked, an old freighter with Earth registration. From it descended a small, wiry man with spectacles and a data pad. He looked like a librarian from a mid-tier planetary academy. He was her father. Not a soldier. Not a warlord. Just a man with tired eyes and a soft voice. "I'm here for my daughter," he said. The guards didn't resist. They didn't know why, but they didn't resist. Inside the shuttle, as the bay doors closed, he asked her a single question. "Did they hurt you?" She shook her head. "Did you hurt them?" Pause. "No," she said softly. "Just showed them what could happen." Her father exhaled. Then smiled faintly. "They'll never stop talking about it now." She didn't smile back. Just looked out the window watching the stars turn. "They shouldn't talk," she said. "They should listen." Back on the station that same night, something remarkable happened. The Drachna leader, the one she'd humiliated in class, was seen kneeling in the shrine room. Not praying. Not weeping. Copying. Watching security footage. Analyzing her movements. Trying to learn. It wasn't pride anymore. It was survival. He whispered to himself. She didn't defeat us. She revealed us. Weeks passed. Across the galaxy, Earth children, those raised quiet, those overlooked, those underestimated, began rising in ranks without trying to. Council instructors noticed something alarming. They weren't training humans anymore. They were witnessing them. And one truth kept clawing at their minds. If this is how a human child behaves under pressure, what does an adult look like when they stop holding back? On the edge of the Marduan system, a pirate vessel intercepted an Earth diplomatic envoy. The pirates boarded the ship, laughing, armored, prepared for loot and leverage. What they found instead was a teenage girl. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't fight immediately. She just whispered one sentence into the comms. Then waited. 12 minutes later, an unregistered Earth warship exited slip space. A warship no one had ever seen. It bore no weapons on the outside. No warning signal. No visual threat. It simply disabled the pirate ship's systems using waveform manipulation the Council didn't understand. Then, from the black came a message. 3 words. "We train them." Back in the Council core, panic reigned behind closed doors. Not because humanity had struck first, but because they had trained children who didn't need weapons to win. And now the galaxy realized. They trust humans with their young, because they teach their young how not to need trust. They raise them in chaos, in failure, in survival. And in that crucible, Earth doesn't create soldiers. It creates examples. The girl, 771H, would go on to vanish from official records. Some say she returned to Earth. Others claim she now leads Black Ops missions that redefine war without a shot fired. But the most enduring belief is this. She's not alone. She was never alone. She was just the one who showed her class how to stop pretending. If you've made it this far into the story, don't forget to subscribe to the Void Narratives. More tales of humanity's quiet fury and whispered legends are coming. We don't always scream into the void. Sometimes we let it scream for us.